yeah, so I think we've just about got the main functions covered there. Possibly one for creating a new item. Where to pop that, I'm not sure where the best place is. Possibly do it as a function library actually. But no, I'm just going to have a poke around a little bit, see what else I need to do, and then hopefully we'll possibly start work on setting up the item, so the world item itself. So this will be the actual actor you place in the level, as it were. So the idea of that is it would need to be able to create its own item object and then pull data from that object to update how it should look, so update its mesh and that type of thing. So yeah, so we're back shortly. Okay, so I'm back. So in terms of the infantry system, I don't think there's much more I want to add at this particular moment in time. But I did actually add an additional variable to the item base, which is just the material override. Additionally, I added a similar one to the display mesh as well, just in case. And I then just updated the get mesh function to also provide the material override. And for the 3D display, again, it just checks whether or not we have a display mesh specified, and if we have, then it'll provide the display material override. Okay, so one thing we're actually doing now is actually going ahead and starting work on the world items. So we currently have items in the world, but with the current system, this is its own specific actor. Now, just sort of use child, sort of hierarchy and stuff like that. But in a lot of cases, the only differences between a lot of these is actually just the mesh, or in some cases the material as well. So I kind of want to strip it all back a little bit and kind of just make a world item that will create the relevant item object, and in addition to that, we'll then pull the data from it to then update its mesh and things like that. Okay, so we have this world item here, this world item class that I have already created. It's just an actor class, so nothing too fancy. Now, what I do need to add on here is the item object. That's going to be the item base. Again, just as a reminder, obviously in the infantry system tutorial on my channel, I do go over most of the stuff that I've sort of covered in here already. So if you wanted more of a stripped back sort of approach, by all means go check that out. I do go in a bit more detail in terms of explaining some bits as well. Okay, so in terms of the item object, on the construction script, the first thing I'm going to do is actually just check to see whether or not that's valid. Adding to that, we do need, because we're in blueprint only land, we need the item class as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as a soft ref. Do I need that as a soft ref? No, I do not. It's in the world, it should exist. So we're just going to do that as a class ref. Do I want? No. No, I should do that as a soft ref in case we're spawning it in. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to expose that on spawn as well. Instance editable. And the reason why is because if we do the spawn actor of class on spawn. Oh, can't do it in the construction script. Spawn actor from class, and we was to use the world item class. It will then show the item class listed there. What I'm also going to do is expose the item object as well. So that way when we're spawning an item, if we already have an item object, let's say if we're dropping it from the infantry, we can specify that and we can pass it straight in. So the item class itself would only get used if we're needing to create a brand new item of a given class. Okay, yeah, so come in here, we can then, so if that is already valid, we can do that thing. If it's not valid, then we actually need to create one. So we'll start by resolving this here. So I'm just thinking, ideally this should be async loaded, but if we are in the editor, we can't do that. So, 1 second. I need to think of the order of things. But I'm just going to do. Yeah, so in the event graph, let's add a custom event. So I'm just going to call that load item class. The item base. Do item class. We can async load. Just in case you're not aware, async load, because it's a latent node, it can only go in the main event graph. Now, to this particular one, it's never going to need to load another one. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to. Now, I'm not sure if that will work, but we're going to try it. We're going to try it today. So I'm actually just going to, if it's the item class not valid, I'm just going to go in and just load the item straight away, and we'll see what happens. Once it's loaded, we can then cast to the item base. And we do need to make sure it's on the completed pin, not the top one. I'm not sure why it auto connects to that. And then we can create object from class. And we can then set the item mesh like so. And then what I'm going to then do is just create a new function called update item. And I'm just going to do another validator get on here. I'm wondering if it should. No, that's fine. So if it's not valid, at this particular point, it's not going to do anything. But if we want to get the mesh data, and then want to resolve these. To be fair, I could probably just do with loading them outright. Have a quick. How can we do this? Let's add another one of these. This time, I'm just going to do that as an object. Soft class. So this way it'll accept anything. Oh, actually, these need to be soft object. I'm going to call this one load item mesh data. If that is valid, we can set the mesh in a second. If it's not valid, we will call load item mesh data, and we will connect that in. Let's just quickly do an async load asset on there. Now, in this particular case, that's all I'm actually going to do at this particular point here at the moment. So what we could do, I think update item should probably be done in 2 parts, really. They'll do that, actually. Yeah. Once this is completed, I'm just going to call the update item. So that's going to do that. We do need to add a static mesh here. Because it's going to be a physics item, it does need to be the root, otherwise it won't simulate physics correctly. Let's click on item mesh. Come in and we can set the static mesh. So if the mesh isn't loaded, it's going to skip that over. If it is loaded, we're going to do its thing. What we can then do is should probably do a sequence and do something similar for the other side as well. This time for the material. If it's not valid, we want to load it. Just have to remember that whenever we async load, we kind of come out of this, so we can't then just continue, unfortunately. Which is why we then just call the update item again. Because in theory, it should still be loaded whilst it's being used. So we can then do convert that to a validated get. Oh no, not what we want at all. To get the mesh. Do I need to do that? No, I don't need to do that. I'm going to get the item mesh and we can set the material. And then we can set it to whatever that is. In terms of the material here, we do actually want to check if it's a valid soft breath, although to be fair, I'll probably do that with both of them. Because if this is not a valid soft ref, then we don't need to do anything in terms of the material. It should just use the default one on the mesh. The local variable desired mesh. Hopefully tidy things up a little bit. Yeah, so what I'm going to do here, if the desired mesh is not valid, then we're not actually going to bother doing anything because we can't set a material or anything like that. So we'll kind of just stop. If it is valid, we can then probably just set the material override as well. So desired material. Okay, so we've set that. So we already know the desired mesh is valid. So we can connect that back up to there. We want a sequence here. Material. That to a validated get. If it is valid, let's remove some of this. And then I think it's a little bit tiny. So I am going to create a quick test item. And we'll Interesting that it only shows those. That's because I never set those to private. Let me quickly do that. There we go. Okay, yeah, so with this test item, because pretty much all the variables are private, we can't actually see them in the list. So what we have to do is edit it in the property matrix. So in case you missed that, it's just that little button there, which opens it up like this so we can actually see it all. So the thing we're currently interested in is just the mesh. I want some, let's go for a, I'm going to stick the C material on there. So now if I drop the world item into the level, I should be able to select the item class test. Let's see if it does anything. So it hasn't created the item object. So let's see what's possibly going off. So it comes in. Not valid load time. If it is valid, we can probably just call the update item. Is that all I needed? Nope, still not setting up the item object. So yeah, I have a feeling this is probably not functioning. So load the class asset blocking, I think, and then manually construct it here. Done that, we can then just call the update item function. Okay, so that seems to be working. The only problem we probably would have is if we updated the item test. If we change the material this time to the B one, that's not going to update until it gets moved. A major problem, because we can just do the update item here and begin play. So that way, whenever the item gets created, we'll always update it. There. Sets it back to the default one, the looks of it. Lovely. Okay, so there's probably still a few more things I need to sort out here. Not fully happy with the order. Now, I'm quite confident that if I was to create another item, so I'll do test 2, and open the property matrix. So this time I'm going to change it to a rifle. Why not? Something different. If I should change the item class to test 2, nothing happens. I would have to clear that first. So that's the next thing we kind of need to sort out. And that is so we're going to get the class, the soft breath, and we can check is that equal to this. If not, we can come down here. If it is, we can go over there. There. Some tidying. Now, if I change it, there we go. However, what we do want to do is we only want to do that if the item class is valid. And the reason why is because if we are spawning an item because we already have an item object, we are probably not going to worry about setting the item class. So if it's not valid, we can just go ahead and just update the item. Do it this way, swap these around. Try and get this wrangled a little bit. A function equal force, create item object.
Allows us to
You know what? I'm actually just going to add the update item directly into the class there. Because if we're forced creating it, then we're going to have to update. I hope that should still be working. Test 2. Yeah. And then test. Okay. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. So we've got that. What do we have on the begin play? Just the update item. Now, one thing we will need for later on is a GUID. That's mainly for saving. So I'm just going to add one now. I'm going to set it so if we force so if we actually force create a new item object, it's going to automatically create a GUID, I think. That's a good way to go. Let's see. So the issue I have with GUIDs is we do want to make sure that they are consistent. So if we change that to test 2, it does generate a new GUID. If I duplicate that, the object does remain the same. If we was to clear that, it would automatically create a new GUID. Okay. Of course, the issue we do have is that if we are duplicating objects, it will have the same item object. So that is one thing we want to try and avoid. I think there's any way around it. The issue we have, particularly when we get to saving, is if we regenerate the GUID, it would break any of the saved data for that specific object, which obviously we want to try and avoid where possible. Yeah, not quite sure at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a poke around off camera, and I'll be back when I've decided how I want to handle it next. Okay, so I think I've got a solution here that I'm happy with, and it was a lot simpler than I thought it'd be. So in the world item here, what I've actually done, for the item object, I have made it transient. As it states, it just says it won't be serialized, and it gets filled with zeros at load. Which is quite nice because it means if I duplicate this object, it will automatically clear the item object, which will then force it to create a brand new one, which then means it gets a new GUID as well. So yeah, so that seems to be working quite nicely. If we go ahead and then change the item, again the same thing happens as well. Oh, lovely. Now what we can probably do in terms of the actual item class, for the item object, we probably want to make that private. And the GUID, we don't want that to be instance editable. Let's do well, the GUID does need to be private. Okay, but I am thinking if you're spawning an item in from a save, we may want to set that. So let me just double check that. So if we come in and it's already valid, that's not valid, we can just update the item. So if we expose on spawn, and it's going to want it to be instance editable, that way when we do the spawn actor from class, we can specify a GUID, which we probably should do. But in some cases that might not always be possible. So on here, I'm just going to add a debug. So it is valid GUID. And if it's not, I'm going to do a print string. And we'll make that a lovely red colour. Drop this into a function. And we're just adding a return value here as well. Oh, that doesn't need to be a pure. There we go. So check GUID, so that's a function we've got there, so that'll just get called, but it does allow us to use the value as well. Okay, so it is private, so we're all good there. Item class, that should probably be private as well. And the item object is also private. But we do need to add a function here, so get item object. That can be a pure function. And again, just tidying things up a little bit. Making sure we pop things into functions, categories. So first create item object, update item, get item object. Okay. Now in terms of the base items, I would say that's probably about it. Still don't like how easily accessible the GUID is. So let me move that into the advanced display. So that should kick it somewhere. It's down here. Yeah. So at least it's out of sight. It would be nice to block it entirely, because obviously, as I mentioned, if this does get cleared, then it can cause a few problems with saves. But yeah, so that seems to be working. Okay, yep. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have another poke around off camera and decide what it is I want to do work on next. Work shortly.